All right, looks like we're at the top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and kick this party off and get started. Good evening and welcome to Black History in the Making, leveraging the collective power of Black employee resource groups. My name is Prince Hutchison, and I serve as Community Programming Lead for DFW Collective of Black Employee Resource Groups, also known as the BERGS. Thank you for joining us for this very, very important conversation. We have an excellent group of panelists who are all leaders of Black ERGs at their respective organizations. They will be answering a number of questions that will address challenges ERG leaders face today. This is a tremendous opportunity for us all to learn from their experiences. So before I get into introducing our moderator, I do want to cover a couple of housekeeping items here. First things first, this event is being streamed live. We do want to make sure that you all are aware. If you have any questions, you can drop those questions in the chat feature. We do have someone there managing them. Also, we will have some time at the end of the panel discussion for you all to ask some questions directly to our panelists. So we will reserve some time for that. We'll wrap up this session tonight at 7 o'clock. So this will be a 1-hour session. We want to be very, very efficient, but very meaningful in terms of the things that we'll be talking about. So a lot of great content. Super excited. So sit back, relax, get your popcorn ready. We got a great discussion here this evening. So I do want to take an opportunity just to introduce our moderator for tonight. So our moderator will be Ebony Johnson. Ebony Johnson joined CBRE filling the role of Manager of Global Diversity and Inclusion in September 2018. She currently leads executive learning and development programs supporting CBRE's advisory, brokerage, and transactions group. Ebony has a distinguished career working in various industries in diversity, human resources, and learning and development for over 20 years with companies such as Gap Incorporated, FedEx Office, and H&R Block. Prior to joining CBRE, Ebony was a manager at Starbucks Global Diversity and Inclusion team, leading D&I strategy work and the implementation of consistent practices for employee resource groups throughout the organization. Ebony initially joined Starbucks as a human resource manager, supporting senior leaders across multiple work streams. Ebony has a strong passion for developing others and is known for her work leading diversity and inclusion programs at corporate levels, implementing on onboarding programs, field leadership roles, and developing HR strategy. She is an active member of the Society for Human Resource Management, National Association of African Americans in Human Resources, and the Texas Diversity Council. She is also a board of director for the Black Mom Collective. Ebony holds an MBA and an HR certification from the University of Phoenix and a certification in diversity and inclusion from Yale School of Management. Ebony enjoys running, reading, community outreach, and traveling with her family. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you, Ms. Ebony Johnson. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So excited to have you join us this evening. We have a rock star panel today. As you can see, these lovely individuals, we have Bobby, Latoya, Shashanta, and Scott, and they're going to drop some extreme knowledge with us this evening around what it is to lead and take your business employee resource groups to the next level, especially those that are led by or fulfilled with Black employees. What you're going to hear today is a collective of the resources that are available and how we can use those to support our communities through social, cultural, and corporate change. So, as we get ready for this conversation, I would like to have each of them, give a quick intro about who they are, where they work, and their role in employee resource groups or business employee resource groups. And then lastly, as you get ready to finalize your intro of yourselves, I'd like to know, along with the audience, if there was one person in Black history that you could meet with, who would it be and why? And before we get into that, I would actually like to answer that question as well. And I've been giving this a little bit of thought. There's several individuals that I would love to spend time with that are part of Black history. But one that really comes to mind at this point right now is Cicely Tyson. With the recent news of her passing, it just really hit home for me in a different way. And she is excellence personified, and she is somebody that I would absolutely love to just sit down and have a cup of coffee with, or I don't know, we probably do some shots, me and Miss Cicely. So without further ado, let me go ahead and pass it over to Bobby Brown Alexander to do your introduction.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, and I am really happy to be a part of the panel this evening. I'm Bobby Brown Alexander, and I'm a senior manager at IBM in infrastructure services, and I'm also president of the business resource group for IBM's Black constituency in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. Thinking about someone for Black history, I think I would choose Ella Baker. Ella was the national director for the NAACP. She also worked with the Southern Christian Leadership Council and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee as one of the leading figures in the civil rights movement. It's particularly meaningful for me that she is known for her leadership style, which helped develop other leaders. She helped them gain the skills to become leaders in the fight for a better future. And I see myself, my leadership style is one of helping not only the people that report to me, but the members of the BRG that I lead reach their full potential by providing them with opportunities to develop and sharpen their leadership skills.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Shashanta.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of this wonderful panel. Again, my name is Shasanta Dakany. In my current role at Baxter International, I'm responsible for designing and implementing strategic initiatives to enhance our workplace culture. That's through meetings and events and inclusion and diversity projects that influence our talent acquisition efforts, leadership development, and employee engagement. I serve on the Executive Leadership Committee for Baxter's Black Alliance Business Resource Group, which is comprised of leaders from Baxter's businesses and functions who champion inclusion and diversity. When I think about somebody that I would want to meet from Black history, I'm going a little bit further back than Ebony and Bobby. I think about Rosa Parks because of her ability to break down racial barriers through peaceful and dignified campaigning. I think about, the times that we're in right now. I don't know about you guys, but I get a little exhausted. I'm tired. There's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of education that people that we are having conversations with, they want. And it could be exhausting. The emotional tax that's coming with what's happening with racial injustice has been quite a bit. And so just knowing that she was a very dignified and peaceful woman with how she approached things and pushing for the cause, I think would be something I would want to tap into and just get some insights from her.
Oh, that's a good one. Let's see if Scott can top it.
Well, I don't know about topping the great Miss Rosa Parks, but I'll definitely tell you who I'm interested in meeting. So I'm Scott McGregor, the senior manager at Cisco Systems, and I work in our People and Communities organization, fancy name for HR, and focus on building enduring partnerships between our inclusive communities and our key businesses, sales, CX, IT, and operations. I also led Cisco's Black Employee Organization globally for 5 years and just stepped out of that role to take on this as a way of elevating all of our communities and create these meaningful dialogues between our inclusive communities and our businesses. If I had to pick someone that I would be interested in meeting, it'd be Fred Hampton. I learned a lot more about Fred Hampton with the movie that came out here recently. And as a coalition builder, he realized something at a very early age that I think sometimes get lost in conversations around addressing systems of privilege and oppression. It's designed to keep only one person in the room getting their needs addressed at a time while everybody else waits in the hallway. What he did is he built a coalition of people who were underrepresented, oppressed, downtrodden. And that coalition itself was very powerful. And I'd love to just understand how he was able to have dialogues with different groups of people and bring them together in such a powerful way. So that would be who I'd love to spend some time with.
Wow, that's a good one too. They're all good so far. And really with the recency of the movie, it's starting to bring more knowledge about what was going on during that time. So very appreciative of kind of the timing of some things that are happening, particularly during Black History Month as well. So spot on. All right, so last but certainly not least, Miss Latoya.
Thank you, Ebony. Good evening, everyone. I'm Latoya Haynes. I am currently the Director of Racial Equity at Intuit, the makers of TurboTax, QuickBook, and Mint. I am also one of 3 global chairs for Intuit's African Ancestry Network. If I would love to talk to 1,000 Black people, but if I had to narrow it down to one and keep a business context, I would love to have a conversation with Madam C.J. Walker and just understand what it was like to start this business as a Black woman, and then to get all the great hair tips, and also to talk about the financial decisions that she made to become the first Black millionaire.
I think I'm blown away by all of the folks that have been mentioned this evening. And she's also another good one in terms of, like you said, that business mind. And sometimes this is something that we can particularly get stronger in as a Black culture, right? Just understanding finance and what that means. And so that's a good one as well. So thank you all for sharing. I think these are wonderful examples of, prominent folks in Black history that really have made their mark for us. So thank you for sharing that. All right, so now let's just get into some questions. And Bobby, I want to start with you. And this is not intentional because I started with you last time, but I do have a question that maybe it's just really tugging at my heartstrings as well. And I know many of you on the panel and in our audience have experienced personal stories of injustices. How do you balance your personal feelings while leading an ERG? Do you include these stories to create awareness and understanding of inequality or inequity within your organization? Why or why not?
Yeah, that's a good question. And thank you for that question, Ebony. So when I think of injustices, I think of it in terms of unfairness that resulted in an undeserved outcome. And within that context, so I've been with IBM for 39 years. So absolutely over that length of time, I have experienced within the context of work. And for me early on, I think it was a challenge. Dealing with it was a challenge because I didn't really have that voice that I needed. I didn't have the knowledge of really how to deal with it or the voice. And so I internalized it. What I've learned over the years is that to not be bitter, to first of all, to understand that it's not me. There's not something that's wrong with me necessarily. I mean, in situations where, I know I was Top Gun, I know I was the right person for that promotion, but it didn't turn out that way. I learned to not internalize that and bring myself down, but to use it to power myself forward. At some point in time, I did find that voice, the voice to tell the story, to tell it in a way that it ended up being productive, to lay out the facts, to show the reason why the outcome should have been different. And I do now with people, my direct reports, and those people that are a part of the BRG. I do it in the form of storytelling. This is what happened to me. This is what the outcome was. This is how I reacted at this point in time, but I learned to deal with it, in this way after time and experience, and hoping that will be able to help them in the place that they are now to be able to. Injustices still exist, even in the veiled way that they sometimes surface now. They still do exist, and I think that we all have to First of all, don't feel like we're inferior. Don't feel like it happened because there's something wrong with us, or that we didn't do it as good as we possibly could. Check yourself, check yourself. Make sure that you're doing the work. And when you're doing the work, find the right way to tell that story. But above all, don't become bitter, and don't let it dishearten you to the point where you just stop and give up.
Well, I will say personally that I've experienced something similar to this not so long ago. And the one thing that you said that's, really ringing true is the bitterness, right? Like, look yourself in the mirror, get over it, and then figure out maybe what went wrong, or how you didn't show up, or whatever that is, and perfect it for the next time and just keep getting back up. So I really, really love that. And I love that you're actually doing that in the audiences of the members of the specific research groups, because that's where a lot of times that those walls come down and these stories come out are in those circumstances. So really appreciate you sharing that, Bobby. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. My next question, I'm actually going to jump over to Scott for this one. What is the importance of Black History Month to you, both personally and professionally? How do you feel when companies want to join everything Black, or, they really wanted to just jam it all in, everything Black in the month of February? And then how do you counter this within the organization?
Yeah, so thank you for that. So obviously, I got to be Black all year. But what sort of Black I am, I think, has changed over the years. To be quite frank with you. Coming up in corporate America, I was kind of, I was listening to Bobby talk about how long she's been at IBM, and I've probably been in corporate America getting close to around about the same number of years. And I realized that I was practicing a sort of corporate Samboism that meant I looked at Black people the way white people looked at Black people, and then I actually started encouraging those Black people to kind of operate in that paradigm. And over the years, I've developed a much more authentic Black voice. And now when I'm talking with young people or folks who want to join the company, I'm encouraging them to be themselves. Wear your hair the way you want to wear your hair, wear the clothes you want to wear, even speak the way you want to speak. Because if I'm not hiring you for what you have here and what you have here, then you probably don't need to work for us anyhow. So Black History Month is an opportunity to be like extra Black, if you will, and really kind of challenge a lot of the paradigms that unfortunately probably did more damage than we realized to a lot of the folks that we're looking to bring in. So when the company tries to just put everything in there, I'm normally the person saying, hang on for a second, who did you ask Black about this before you did it? And they'll say, oh, I talked to my one Black person. I said, we probably need to talk to more than one Black person. If you don't know it anymore, come holler at me, because I know pretty much all of them. And they would have told you that whatever y'all were trying to do, that won't it. So it's a give and take, really during that time. But I think we're getting better. And I think last year was a flashpoint, which allowed us to be a lot more strident in our protests about certain things. There's a lot more courage to kind of stand up and speak, these truths. I would never even use the word Sambo in a corporate setting, not even 5 years ago. But it is what it is. And you can't do better, or you can't, if you don't call it out, you can't do better. You have to call it what it is. So yeah, I think it's important to me because it does give me a chance to, look back at those folks that have, done things in history, but also look at people who are making history now and make sure that they also get a platform to speak authenticity, in white spaces. So that's kind of what it does for me.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, there were several big nuggets that came out of that response that I'm sure the audience is just soaking it up. And bringing your whole self to work is super important, especially in this day and age. And, to your point, trying to fit into a box or acclimate to a culture of a corporation so that you can be noticed to help move yourself up or whatever the case may be. I mean, now it's totally shifted, and I can see it and I can feel it as well, in the corporations, organizations that I've either worked for in the past or have interacted with in this space more recently. It's just be who you are. And that is tending or lending really to get people to a better space. So I really appreciate that response, because that's spot on as well. Okay, so let's, Latoya, let me jump over to you for just a moment for another question that I have around policy. So, are you able to describe a policy that was changed or implemented due to the collective actions of your ERG? Um, and, when you think about it, what was the situation? What was the task at hand? What was the action that you had to take? And then ultimately the results. What are some of the long-term effects of these actions?
One of the big things that I'll mention before getting into the details of the question is a mindset shift that we made amongst the employee resource group. So instead of allowing the leadership and HR to tell us what we could do, we started asking for what we needed. And that mind shift really allowed us to impact one of the biggest things for all employees at Intuit, and that's employee benefits. So one of the major things that we've been able to do, and other ERGs have helped in this journey as well, is expand the benefits that we offer to all Intuit employees. So we go well beyond your standard medical, dental, eye care types of programs, and you're starting to see flexible work arrangements. We offer financial services support, so you can get your finances together, right? You can use a financial planner to help you figure things out and make the best use of 401k programming and other employee stock purchase programs and things along those lines. Another thing that we've done in the benefits space is if we were all on site, you would see that we have neutral gender restrooms. We have dedicated prayer areas. We have well-being rooms. We have rooms dedicated so that mothers can nurse if they need to. We've done a lot of things in our workplace that are additional benefits for employees as well, a variety of snacks and different beverages and things along that line that are free. In the well-being space, we offer a lot of exercise classes. We have on-site fitness centers. Because everyone is virtually, we're now offering yoga and meditation and mindfulness resources to help all employees deal with the extra added stress of the pandemic and having to shelter in place, and now be in a space where you also have children, elderly parents that you may be taking care of, and also for those people who may be living alone and dealing with stress and isolation. So those are some of the things that we've done outside of the standard list of benefits. We also offer legal services. We have concierge services. So you can call people and, pay the small fee for them to do your grocery shopping, or to set up your dental appointments, or to take your car to get the oil changed, or whatever the things are that you need. So one of the major places that the employee resource groups have been able to extend additional impact is in the area of benefits. We've also seen a large increase in our health benefits for those who are also transgender and may look at other options as a part of their transition. So now those things are covered as well in the medical benefits. So we're doing a ton of great things to bring additional benefit to all employees. But I think we were able to make that happen with making that mindset change of going from waiting for the leaders to tell you what you can do to being able to articulate what you need to be the best employee for your employer.
Standing ovation. that is phenomenal to hear that, how progressive that is in this moment. And, coming from a company such as Starbucks, where that is also benefits and, overall how employees are operating in their certain spaces, and that's kind of the culture that I've come from and that I'm used to. And it's great to see that, an organization such as yours has taken it even to the next level and just is being agile and pivoting especially during the time of a pandemic? And how do we, get in touch and get real deep with people that are by themselves, or, navigating the newness of being at home with your 5-year-old, and teaching and working. So these are really great ideas, and it's very innovative, but it's super simple. When I hear you kind of speak to it, very simple to implement. You're getting direct feedback from the people that matter most, and it's the people that would be using those benefits. So bravo to you. And I'm pretty sure if you all are, checking and the pulse and the climate of your employees, the overall engagement, I'm pretty sure, even though I don't work there, is probably, it has increased. I'm sure, even with what we're dealing with in terms of the pandemic. So bravo to you and your team. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a shift to Shasanta. I have a question for you as well. Okay. And that question is, what are you most looking forward to in 2021 because of the work and the increased focus on your ERG and the involvement there? What tangible changes have you seen in your organization, and what changes would you like to see in the future?
Good question. Baxter is on a multi-year journey to really make sure that we're driving sustainable change as it relates to advancing racial justice in the Black communities. So not just in our workplace, but in our communities, in the marketplace, et cetera. We've identified really 5 key areas that we're focusing on, and that is 1, enhancing our workplace representation. Our BRG is very much involved in making sure that we are partnering with the right organizations, HSBUs, to find talent to bring them to Baxter. We are also putting forth a very concerted effort to build a culture of belonging. So not just making sure that our Black talent feels comfortable being in Baxter, their whole self authentically, and I think I heard that a couple of times earlier, but also making sure that our leadership and our people that are responsible for managing our talent they have the right tools and resources to have the tough conversations, to make sure that they are being sensitive to some of the challenges that we face, as part of our culture, and making sure that we have the right development opportunities to advance the talent, to strengthen the pipeline within our organization. We're also making an effort to reduce healthcare disparities within our communities. So, we're mobilizing resources internally to connect with the right people out in the community to make sure that there's increased level of awareness of what the disparities are and how we can make an impact, identifying, key opinion leaders to help us, healthcare professionals, to make sure that we're getting the right messaging out there to address those issues, and making sure that we're doing our part. And then from a social perspective, again, advocating for racial justice. Having those conversations internally is one thing. And we had an event last week that some of you guys on the panel are aware of, where we brought in someone who was able to, stir things up a bit, to keep the conversation going about what some of the issues are that we typically don't talk about in the workplace. And quite frankly, some of our stakeholders feel it doesn't affect them because they don't deal with other ethnicities. But when you're dealing with a global organization, heck, you're human. When you deal with people, there are things that you need to be aware of and that you need to make some change on. And part of it is education, part of it is talking, the other part of it is listening, and listening with the intent to understand, not to correct or to challenge, but really to understand. That's part of that empathy component. And then just again, looking at how we can make sure that we are looking at the needs of our Black talent globally. So we talk a lot about what the impact of things are for us in the US, but we have brothers and sisters across the world. So, Black History Month is celebrated in February here in the US, but it's celebrated at different times of the year in other parts of the world. So one thing that we've done this year is we've made sure that we have included, in the spirit of inclusion, we've included Black history across the world, ways that our talent internally can celebrate and acknowledge history in their areas, and making sure that when those holidays come up or those significant days or opportunities come up to acknowledge it and to highlight it, that we're doing that as an organization as well.
How cool is that? Again, super innovative, but yet so impactful for everybody across the globe at your company to see that. Wow. I'm actually a little speechless. And it's, again, I don't know where the idea came from, but it changes things, right? When you actually are listening. And one of the things that you touched on that I think is super important, because we kind of hear that narrative from time to time about courageous conversations and what that looks like. I think what's really fantastic about what you shared is you brought somebody in to help break that up and just make people think about things differently from that perspective. And storytelling is becoming really big across all functions in an organization, because it's a way for people to get kind of their point across. And so I'm really excited to hear too, and you all have mentioned it in some way, shape, or form in terms of having those courageous conversations, being able to try to break down those barriers about what it's like. And so again, a big kudos to each one of you for doing that, taking the charge. I have a final question. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to add this. I think that it's so important, just piggybacking on the courageous conversation and storytelling. I think it's so important to have leaders model that behavior so that, you know, people throughout their organization understand what that looks like. And I think that that's one thing that I'm very proud of our CEO at Baxter doing. He's, you know, a man from Brazil. He's had his own experiences with racism. He's a person of color. And being able, him having the vulnerability to share his story has really opened the door for others to do that as well. And he makes sure that he provides the platform for our employees to do that. When you have that human connection, that's something that you can't, you know, you can't read it in a textbook, right? Someone's experiences is one thing, but to hear someone give their personal stories about the effect of racism, it has a different spin to it, right?
Wow. Yep. You're right. Okay. So I have a final question that, you know, each of you, I'd love to hear from whoever would like to respond to this. If it's all of you, great. A few of you, that's fine. But it's a long question. So I'm gonna break this up just a little bit. You know, in 2020, companies were challenged with addressing inequality in the workplace. And then these companies relied heavily on their Black employee base and Black employee resource groups to, while maintaining their full-time jobs, you know, really help try to be the voice about what this was. And there's kind of an unspoken reliance upon Black leadership in the employee resource groups to solve company-wide DEI issues, while they themselves are navigating, you know, at work and at home and in society, and just really the overall mental well-being, right, of them as individuals. So when I think about this for each of you as kind of a global ERG leader, can you share some feelings from last year, and how did you, if you experienced them, how did you deal with it? And did you reach a point of mental exhaustion? I know we heard that like right in the beginning of this conversation, but I'm just wondering from each of you, you know, how did you deal? How are you? And, you know, what do you like, how do you foresee kind of the turning of the tide in 2021? It may not even be soon enough, right? It's going to take some time. So just curious, how are you all feeling and doing?
Ebony, I'd like to respond.
Absolutely.
It is a long question, and I don't know that I'll hit all the points in it. But so when I think of 2020 and the work that needed to be done, I think the need existed, but the I believe George Floyd's murder was the catalyst that put us over into, a totally different level or a totally different realm. And at first, everyone, I think, I'll just speak for myself, and what I saw within my employee resource group was what people were stunned. And then after that came emotion, real raw emotion. And I heard Scott say earlier, I'm Black all year long, but it seemed as though it unlocks, that gave us the permission to be Black and develop this, said blackety black black black. We're blackety black black black, and hairstyles started to change. On the WebEx meetings, I saw more braids and more afros and more afro puffs, and um, it was, the anger, the hurt, the dismay, all of this raw emotion that catapulted us to a place that said, I'm Black and I'm going to show it whether you like it or not. That real authentic self began to show up, like it finally had the permission, I don't care. From the very highest levels within the company, there was a directive that said, talk to your Black African American employees. This is to all the management team. Ask them if they're okay. And a couple of weeks passed, and I had not gotten that call to ask me if I was okay. And my assumption, I strongly felt like, you're not asking because you don't care. But you know what? Today, I'm going to call you and I'm going to tell you how I feel. I'm going to tell you whether I'm okay or not. I'm not okay. And I want you to understand the reason that I'm not okay. And I know that happened a lot. People found the voice finally to say, I'm tired of showing up and pretending like everything is okay. What we saw on the news was everywhere, but it was just the latest thing. It was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. So, I'm not okay because of what you saw on TV and you haven't reacted to, you haven't acted like it was anything more serious than, a car jumping the curb. I'm not okay because for the last 10 years, you've overlooked me, you've undercut me, you've done all of these things. Again, it was, that thing that broke the camel's back. But yes, overload, emotion, as an ERG, BRG leader, emotional overload. I got to a point where I actually had to take 3 weeks off because I felt like if it was about us, we needed to be a part of it. I needed to be a part of it. If we were shaping things that were going to address issues for us, I needed to be a part. And I kept taking on things and taking on things. The things I learned out of that was, self-care, the importance of self-care. And self-care is a lot different than pampering, right? These are the kind of things that a massage wouldn't cure. A pedicure and a manicure would not cure it. And then bringing to our ERGs that same thing, understanding what we are feeling, what we are dealing with is real. And we've spent so much time in the past just coping with it and not really dealing with it. Bring it out. Let's bring it out to the front. Let's have these open discussions where we could cry, and we did. People use the words that they felt like they needed to use. We did that. We did that within our own safe space where we could let this out, this raw emotion, let it out and get us to a point where then we could take from that some actionable items and be able to shape some work streams that we could address some of these things. But in the meantime, take care of yourself. You can't be so consumed with the emotion that, now you end up somewhere in a place that you don't want to be. Your benefits, as Latoya said earlier, your benefits, those 12 free sessions that you can go and talk to somebody that is professional, use them. Let's bring this thing forward, and then let's shape the way. And what I saw come out of that within our BRG is, that where we had not been taking pride in who we authentically are, I saw that pride coming through. And again, I don't know that I touched on everything, but the main takeaway for me was we got to do, we have to do the work, but let's not derail our own selves personally in the process of doing that. Self-care is not just important, it is absolutely essential. Find out what that is for you. And for me, it was 3 weeks off. I actually got to the point where I felt like I want to go out into the desert and dig a deep, deep hole. And I want to get in that hole. And then I want to pull a tent on top. I want to be off the grid, off the radar. I just got to decompress. We have to understand what that need is. And then we have to take the action to do it, to come back. The work isn't going to go away. And if we're not fit to do the work, it falls to somebody else. And I think we have to take on what we need to do to have the stability, the ability and the stability to accomplish the things that work for us.
I'd like to weigh in if it's okay, just to kind of speak just very quickly about it. Dr. Derek Bell, the late Dr. Derek Bell, talks about something called interest convergence. And that's when the group that's in power, their needs, and the group that's being oppressed, there's a convergence. And for a time that those two interests are aligned. And when those interests are aligned, you can have really some amazing things happen. We had Brown versus the Board of Education, because the United States was looked at in a negative light while this case was being tried. So the interests of the powerful aligned with the powerless at that point, and you got that landmark decision. But it still took, in some cases, 12, 13 years before the states actually pushed through. But that's when it happened. And that's one thing that I took into this situation last year with the unfortunate death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, all of these deaths. They want to keep Black people reacting. They want to keep us emotional, and they want to keep us reeling, so that all we are able to do is just kind of go back and forth from one tragedy to the next. But we miss the intersection, when the needs of the people who are being oppressed line up with the needs of the people who are powerful. And I think if you keep your eye on those opportunities for intersection, that's when you can get VPs of diversity for the first time in corporate history in some companies. That's where you can get an unprecedented amount of money. $30 billion spent by J.P. Morgan for Black Pathways. $500 million by the lady, the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos, to Black schools. Almost $4 billion in private and corporate donations in 1 year. More money than the HBC community has seen over the last 20. But you've got to make sure, and I think this is kind of where Bobby was talking here, you've got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, and that if you need to step off that front line, you got a fresh soldier ready to jump in there and take that work and keep it moving. Because the way power works is it wants you to get tired. It wants you to give up. It wants you to feel like it's hopeless. And the problem with us is we're dealing with so many things. If you're a Black man, you're dealing with some stuff. If you're a Black woman, you're dealing with sexism and you're dealing with racism. If you're a Black trans woman, now you got a trifecta of things that are working against you. And it's designed to make sure that when those issues and those times of convergence happen, you're so exhausted that you miss it. And then by the time you're ready to come back and address the issue, they moved on. Now it's a whole nother group that's now got their time in to have an audience with the powerful. So what I'm saying here is make sure as we go through this time here, because there'll be another time like last year. That might sound harsh, but there will be, because people haven't fundamentally changed a whole lot, but their interests converge for a time with ours. We have to make sure that when that time comes the next time, we're able to press our advantage even more. And there may be some things that, I won't get to see in my time in corporate America. It might be another 10, 15, it might be my son behind me who sees some of these things. But it's only because I've got someone behind me that if I get tired, I got that person, I can put them up there and let them carry the work forward. So that's kind of what I took that best practice out of everything that I saw last year when I went on what I call the Responsible Negro Tour, to go out and talk to everybody about what it's like to be, what it's like to be a black man in America. Like for some reason this year is different than last year. You guys, I'm talking about you non-black folk, this is new to you all. This is what I live every single day. So, the resilience that's built into me as a black person, that's something that you all need to tap into to give to some of these other folks that as soon as, there's a cloudy day, they're sitting home because they've got seasonal affective disorder and they can't leave the house. And I got to leave the house and I'm worried about getting shot. But I still can show up in corporate America, do my job, do yours too. So let's just make sure that we're taking care. We're training that next group that can come up behind us, and just kind of be okay with it. It's going to be a long haul. It might be another 39 years, but we are making progress. I want to make sure that I'm clear with that. We are making progress. There's people like Bobby and Ebony and Latoya and Shoshanta and all the other ones that are out here struggling, trying to make this stuff happen. We are making progress, but we also have to be okay with walking away and saying, you know what, not today, but maybe tomorrow. That's what I took out of last year.
Ooh. Man, I'm actually trying not to bust into tears right now, just because it does bring up things. Last year sucked, just to put it bluntly. And so, just kind of being in fight or flight mode for as long as you have, and then coming out of that and then trying to, make things better for everybody, and you're forgetting about yourself. And I just think you all shared some really good, knowledge on that front as well. Latoya or Shoshanta, is there anything you want to add to this before we get into audience questions?
I'd love to make a quick add. The first thing is you cannot approach this as a project. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. Oh, this will be 12 months or a 16-month initiative or a project, and we'll move on to the next thing. As you're working in this space, set it up as a multi-year journey so that people don't forget, and keep your foot on the gas. Continue the momentum. As Scott said, we have made progress. There's still a lot of work to go. But if we walk away from this or back out of what this is, everyone that you need to help you and the allyship, they will turn and they'll back out of it too. So one of the things that I continue to stress with our employee resource group is we got to stay ready, because we don't have time to get ready. So just as Scott said, we're doing lots of things to educate ourselves. We have enlisted the help of racial equity experts. We have delivered Black resilience workshops. We are doing the things so that when we need to tap out, somebody else is there so that we can tag them in and keep this thing going. The other thing is, think about the future. Don't bill for what you need now. Bill for what the Black people coming into your ERG will need. So what I tell a lot of people is, I'm not building a car, I'm building a spaceship. Because in 20 years or in 10 years or in 5 years, the Black people coming into it will need a spaceship. So think about that also as you're putting your strategy together and articulating the change that you want to make. And my final point is around self-care. I am a firm believer in detox baths, walking the dog, taking time to meditate and pray. And I also do another thing that some people think is silly. I call all the old Black people I know and just check in with them and ask and tell them what I'm dealing with and ask them what they would do. And you get some amazing advice from your elders who have seen some things that we don't even know about. So those are a part of the things that I do in my own kind of self-care and wellness routine. But don't think that you have all the answers. Call other people, read everything that you can, learn from others, and hit some of those old school aunties and uncles and Black mamas and Black daddies up and ask them, because some of them are retired and sitting at home, but they're a wealth of knowledge. There have been people who have been down this road before us, and there will be those who come behind us. So don't forget to reach back to those and ask questions. And as you're preparing, prepare a path for the future. I'm doing this work because I don't want my daughters to have to deal with people asking questions about their hair in the workplace or assuming what they can and cannot do because of the color of their skin. So look back and think and build for the future.
And the only thing that I can add that hasn't been touched on is I think, not losing sight of all of the powerful energy that our younger generation is bringing to this, right? I'm inspired by, them really taking charge of this and wanting to create the world that I think we all want to live in, right? They're not sitting back. They're not being quiet. And I think that there's something to take from that. I think we touched on earlier how some of us have come up through corporate, kind of sitting back, being passive, accepting things accepting things that we should not have. So again, the inspiration from the younger generation has been very, very refreshing.
Well, I think we got a little bit of church on Thursday nights. This is what I'm talking about. I hope that, our audience and, folks that have joined us this evening got something out of this conversation. I know that I did. And, the four of you are amazing leaders. Keep doing the things that you are doing. I might pull on one of you at some point because I definitely learned a lot as well. And we're all here for each other, right? So I think sometimes we also forget about the community, right? We have a strong community around us and we want to help each other succeed. And it's like, now is the time. Don't be afraid to tap into that community. Get to know what somebody else is doing. Find out what you can offer and how you can help. You can learn a lot along the way as well. So, I'm definitely fostering in this next year around community. So last, I know that we have just a couple of minutes left, but I'd love to, have a quick conversation around the importance of tying the work that we do in the diversity space, in the work that we do with our employee resource groups to business goals and objectives. How important is that? Why should we be doing it?
That's very important. Listen, if you look at the fact multivariate diversity is a key differentiator of companies that do well versus companies that don't do well. So if you have been able to address bias in your sourcing, in your interviewing, in your onboarding, in your retention, then you're already building in a differentiator that is going to take your competitors years to catch up to if they haven't yet adopted those practices. So whenever you start talking about diversity and you start talking about things like resilience, for example, well, where does resilience play a key role in an organization? If your salespeople aren't resilient, if your salespeople don't know how to deal with upturns and downturns in business, then they're not going to be successful. Here's a population, and typically the underrepresented populations have built-in resilience because they have to deal with a multitude of different things that are coming at them and still show up and deliver against a set of goals. So whenever you're having a discussion with the business leader and they want to, why do we need to focus on this group? Why do we need to focus on that group? Those groups will come in the door knowing that they have to do more, knowing that they have done more, knowing that they can sing, dance, spin plates, tap dance, and everything else. Now, that might seem unfair, but sometimes being able to do more is what gets you in the door. So I think it's okay for us to speak about these underrepresented groups that we bring in that we support, and tie that to the fact that if you want someone who can drive a number, despite of what's going on in the market, despite what's going on, then that's something that's a tangible business benefit that's built into that piece. And I think it's okay for us to say that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. I wanted to touch on that because sometimes that's something that is missed, right? The importance of tying it to business goals and objectives. So we are coming to a close. That hour went extremely fast. But I just wanted to take a moment to thank Bobby, Latoya, Shashanta, and Scott just for your knowledge, for your time, all the things that you're doing in the community, in your workplace, personally and professionally. We thank you for it. Please, for all these folks here in this panel, connect with them on LinkedIn if you haven't already. Again, let's foster this community. I want to jump it over back to Prince to close us out for the evening. But again, thank you all for being here and really appreciate my panelists.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ebony, Scott, Bobby, Latoya, Shasanta. Excellent advice, and just great reflection in terms of what so many of us are maybe experiencing as leaders right now, RGs at our organizations. I do want to just take an opportunity here now just to share just some call to action items that I have noted here, and I want to share with the group and those in the audience. First thing is, let's make sure we take the lessons that we learned tonight and share them with people within your organization. Not only share them, but also look for ways to apply them to your ERG. I think that's very, very important. Second piece that I'll mention here is continue to be an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that's super, super important. I know Latoya shared a lot of great nuggets in regards to some of the things they're doing there in Intuit. Most definitely do that. And the third point I have here in terms of a call to action is, let's make sure that we be resource to others. Let's share our knowledge and make sure we're using our platform to help others along. I know that, I feel comfortable in saying that everybody that's here on this panel didn't get to where they are today without someone being a mentor to them, giving them some advice and helping them along. So be a resource to others. And let's make sure we use that to pull others along. I do know that, just what we're doing here at the BERGS and our mission, this is exactly what our vision is. This is what we envision it's being like, being able to have a panel like this of experienced people sharing their experiences and basically amplifying their voice to come to a collective good for all. So I think this is great. This is fantastic. I do want to just close by saying, again, to our panelists and our moderator, Ebony, thank you so much. We appreciate you sharing your insight and experiences. It's most definitely been an inspiration to me, and I'm sure to many others as well. Continue to shine and represent Black excellence. Absolutely love everything that you all are doing. Last piece that I'll leave you all on is be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. So I know that DFW Collective of Black ERGs is a way to stay connected with us, to figure out everything that's taking place with the BERGS. Again, that's on LinkedIn. So if you can, just pull us up, hit the follow, stay connected with us. Thank you all again. Happy Black History Month. You all have a great evening.